Are you a content creator or social media influencer that just keeps running out of space? Are you a small business or a household that wants to have a bunch of people be able to access your files from the same network? Are you tired of storing all of your important data on a wimpy USB stick like a chump? Then you need Blazo Glory's Storinator 8888. Patent pending. This low-cost NAS costs pennies on the dollar compared to a professional solution. It's cheap, it's easy to set up, and anybody that has access to your network and the proper credentials can get the files they need. Order yours now! Okay, to start, I did do this project a year ago, and I went much more in depth with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. So if you want to see that video, I'll put it in the cards here or here, wherever that thing goes. I'll also put a link to that video in the description. This video is going to be much faster paced as most of the things are the same, but I did want to contrast the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus with the Raspberry Pi 4, you know, to kind of see if it's worth the extra expenditure. And also, there are a couple of things that have changed, which is why I'm reshooting this video instead of just leaving it at the last one that I did. Now, this is still a low-cost NAS setup with stuff that, let's face it, if you watch this channel, you probably just have laying around your house. But I wanted to contrast the 3B Plus with the 4 and see if it's worth the extra, maybe 50 bucks that it would cost to get the Raspberry Pi 4 as opposed to the 3. And if you had to go out and buy everything brand spanking new at the time of filming this, this whole setup would cost you right around or a little less than 150 bucks. And of course you could knock more of that off if you decided to go with just a couple of cheap USBs to try it out, as opposed to you know, putting a couple of solid state drives and a big storage drive on there like I did. I had toyed with the idea of kind of like 3D printing a whole solution for the Raspberry Pi and the storage drives and making it as compact as possible, etc. But in the end, I decided for what it is, it's better to just tape it to a board and then screw that to the wall. I feel like that's much more in the spirit of the whole DIY, at home, low cost, no frills, super easy to do and easy to deal with NAS. Plus, I mean, come on, this is my channel we're talking about here. I kind of subscribe to the Top Gear's ambitious but rubbish way of doing things, so, I mean, it kind of works out. I like the aesthetic. And just FYI, all of the things that I'm going to be typing in the command prompt here, and the link to all of the programs that I'll use, I will leave links in the comment section below just to expedite your setup if you decide to follow my lead here and make it so much easier to install everything and use everything that you need. First, we're going to take the SD card from the Raspberry Pi and we're going to install Raspberry Pi Lite on it. Now, Raspberry Pi Lite, you could do this with just the newest Raspberry Pi image, but Lite doesn't have a GUI, so that's easier to run and it will be faster this way. Things would be largely the same either way, it's just easier with Lite. Next, we're going to write Raspberry Pi Lite to the SD card using Balena Etcher. Then we're going to update Raspberry Pi Lite. Once that's done, we're going to upgrade Raspberry Pi Lite. This will make sure that we have the latest version and it's the most up-to-date possible, so we don't run into any issues down the line. After we've updated and upgraded the Raspberry Pi Lite OS, we're going to check the network settings. This should give our IP address, which we will need later, and this will make sure that it didn't run into any errors or anything like that. If it had, then you would just simply wipe the SD card, reinstall Lite, re-upgrade, and re-update. Now that we've checked the network settings and we have our IP address, we're going to reboot the Pi. Now we're going to install OpenMediaVault on the Raspberry Pi using the command prompt. Now, you used to be able to do this just by going on the website and clicking download, etc. Now you have to go into the repository and you actually have to type in this command and use that to install OpenMediaVault. That's honestly the biggest difference between my last video and this video is just this step. Just that you have to go into the repository as opposed to just downloading it from a website. And we're going to install OpenMediaVault on the Raspberry Pi. This should take about an hour or so, so I recommend you go doing something fun, like maybe subscribing to my channel, for instance, so you don't miss any future content like this. Now that we've done all that, we can install the Storinator in our room of choice. We're going to log into OpenMediaVault using the username and password, which once again you can find in the description. No, do not save that. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in and change the password to something that more befits us and somebody off the street might not be able to immediately guess. To do this, we're going to go to General Settings, Web Administration Password, and we're going to type in a password that makes sense to us, but isn't going to be easy for someone else to guess. Now that that's done, we're going to click Save, and now our password is saved. Now we're going to set up a shared folder so that anybody with access to our network and the proper credentials can go into the system and they can access the files that they need or put files on the NAS itself. So we're going to go to File System, Create. As you can see, I've got a couple here. I'm going to create all three of them. The Pony Elite, those are SSDs, and the Bub Slim BK, that is a 1 terabyte external hard disk drive. So I'm going to create these, and for anything we need quick access to, we can use the solid state drives. For anything that needs more space but isn't as time sensitive or doesn't have to read and write as quickly, we can use the hard drive. Can't see my keyboard. This is going to be quick access 1, and we're going to leave this on ext4 because that's a Linux file system structure, and that'll be easy for this computer to read, seeing as it's running on Linux. Click OK. It's going to ask if we want to format it. Obviously we do. Click yes, let it do its thing, and we'll wait until that's done. Now that all of our drives are created, we're going to mount them. That one's good. That one's mounted, and now that one is mounted. And it should ask you, after you do all of this, if you're sure that you want to apply the changes or what have you, just click yes. It'll ask you after just about everything you do. Now that all of our drives are mounted, we're going to go down to Access Write Management, which you can see here. We're going to click Shared Folders. At the moment, we have none. We're going to add a shared folder. We will call this Slow Storage. Click our device. And since this is slow storage, this is going to be the mass storage drive. We're going to go to permissions, everyone read write. This will make sure that everyone that has access to this network can use this folder. I'm gonna click save. It'll ask us if we want to apply this. Click yes. Are we really sure? Click yes, and then let it do its thing. And now I'm going to do this for all three of my drives so that we can see what the speed difference is between transferring to the solid state drives versus transferring to the 7500 RPM, I think it is, hard drive. You very well could set the permissions here such that if you wanted to have somebody enter in a password or something like that to make sure that they have the proper credentials, then you could do it here. You could also set it up such that the file can only be, or is only a read-write file, so it's It can only be read to, it can only be written to, etc., etc. You have plenty of options here, but a lot of these are out of the scope of this video and are pretty self-explanatory. Now we're going to set up our file sharing system. For this, we'll go to Services, SMB CIFS. Now, this file system is commonly used in Windows to share files across a network. We're going to click Enable, save it, and there we go. It should ask us to apply the changes. We're going to click Yes. Now we click on Shares. We're going to add one of our shared folders. Actually, in my case, I'm going to add at least two, one for the hard drive and one for the solid state drive. Let's see, fast storage SSD 1, that'll be fine for the solid state drive. As this is only a demonstration, I don't need to do both of them. And under public, we're going to click only guest. That's going to allow anybody on the network to be able to access this without using a username or password. And then we would do guests allowed if we wanted to have them enter their credentials before putting in before being able to access the drive. We're going to click save. That should pop up and ask us if we want to apply. Click yes. And once this is finished, we're going to do the same thing for the hard drive in my case. But if you're only setting up one drive, then you've pretty well just set up a shared folder here. Whew! Now that all that's done, and we have our shared folders set up here, as you can see, I've got one for solid state and one for hard drive. We can now go in and test it, make sure everything works, and see what the speed gains are from upgrading to the Raspberry Pi 4 and solid state drives, as opposed to just doing the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus with hard disk drives. Let me move my drink out of the way so I can actually see my Windows bar here. We're going to go to Settings, open this. We'll go to Network and Internet. From there, we're going to go to Network and Sharing Center. Now we're going to go to Change Advanced Sharing Settings and make sure that our network discovery is on. If this is turned off, then it will not allow us to access the network drives. Save changes. Now that our network sharing center is set up, we can go to what up here, this PC, map network drive, map network drive. Let's see, I'm going to end up doing two of them. So I'll have one of them be Z and I'll have the other one be X. Now we're going to browse the network. Might take a moment or two to pull up. We'll find our Raspberry Pi and then we'll find the share folders that we wish to access. Okay, now that we've done that, we'll do Z for the fast storage. We'll click OK and click Finish. And we're going to map another network drive just to keep it easier in my head. X will browse Raspberry Pi and then do slow storage. So now the X drive is the hard drive and the Z drive is the solid state drive. Sorry, I keep having to look down because I can't see my keyboard for my hotkeys. Okay, so now comes the fun part. We get to test it. Let's see, so X is slow storage. What I'll do is I'll put a file to these one at a time and just see how much time elapses. Just in case, I'm gonna set it up on my phone and we'll do slow storage first. Go into the File Explorer, and this isn't going to be an apples to apples comparison. I mean, you know, I don't have the exact file that I transferred last time, but this will give us some type of indicator as to if it's going to be that much faster that it's worth it to upgrade to the Pi 4. Okay, I think this is a pretty fair comparison. This is a 1 GB file that you can see here. Under properties, this is 1 gig even. So let's see how long it takes to do 1 gig worth of file to the hard drive and then to the solid state drive. Slow storage. And we transfer. Start. So far we're on 10%. 18, 20. Wow. This is going a lot faster than the other one did. fast storage, and start. Wow. So as you can see, that is a huge improvement over the Raspberry Pi 3. And theoretically, that's even with my bandwidth cap. Like, theoretically, it would be much faster because my bandwidth for the internet and the network itself caps out at 150 megabits per second. And the Raspberry Pi 4 has gigabit Ethernet. So theoretically, it could be so much faster than that. But that's so much faster than what I had before with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, which was, I think it took somewhere around 38 minutes-ish to do a gig and a half of files. So I'll really let you decide if it's worth the extra $50 to upgrade from the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus to the Raspberry Pi 4. The particular model that I got was the 4 with 8 gigs of RAM. I really don't think that the RAM was the limiting factor here, so you could buy one that costed less and still get off much more quickly than the 3B Plus. But that's the end of the video, and that's all that I have for you. If you liked it, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future content like this. If you didn't like it, tell me why. Constructive criticism is always welcome. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment section below. I want to thank each and every one of you that watched this video, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!